Singaporeans are split on where inflation is headed. 44% expected to rise, while another 44% expected to fall. But most still foresee higher personal expenses. To know what this means for businesses, we have here Professor Aurobindo Ghosh from Singapore Management University. So, Professor Ghosh, how should businesses respond to such uncertainties in consumer spending patterns?
So businesses, particularly for trade-dependent countries, including the United States, China, and Singapore, of course, are facing unprecedented levels of uncertainty. So they are affected by both trade and tariffs and non-tariff barriers that are there, and so they're bracing for the changes. But they should diversify their supply chain and as well as the market that they sell things to, and in particular, I would say that Singapore businesses should focus on local supply chain and markets in ASEAN plus 3 and possibly South Asia as well.
With that, how should businesses react or prepare for such potential price fluctuations?
So I would suggest that for businesses, they should really take a three-pronged approach. So first, the supply side of the story. Now, having a very diversified supply chain is always good for businesses. So they should actually have suppliers and contracts, longer-term contracts across in the region. Second, demand. They should really try to keep their clients and customers and possibly absorb some of the costs that are there. And finally, from the employment side, they should really try to reduce job cuts as much as possible to help employers and also to some extent help customers in the same way.
Let's also touch a bit on trade war and recession. How might these individually affect inflation trends?
Well, trade tariffs are particularly problematic for trade-dependent countries, and globally we have seen that reducing tariffs was one way of getting a significant number of people out of poverty. So indeed, that's a challenge for the global economy and particularly trade volumes and this rise of protectionism that we see. So at the end of the day, what we feel that countries should come together and find out a way around tariffs and try to support their own internal businesses as well as support trade so that the growth is more inclusive and across the board than on individual sectors. So I would suggest that indeed this split that you mentioned, 44% who are thinking prices will go up and prices will go down, seems to be coming from the level of uncertainty that individual consumers are facing right now.
Just a follow-up on that, Professor Ghosh, which factor, trade war or recession, do you think will have the bigger impact on prices and consumer confidence?
So, of course, trade is often the trigger. The trade war is the trigger, and the consumer confidence is an effect. But both of them, at the end of the day, will be affecting the ultimate outcome. Consumers might be pulling back or tightening their belt. So I would say the trade war would have a slightly bigger impact, but according to what we see out there, that this might also lead to a recession. When people are spending less, then there's a chance that the economy might shrink. And that is a real fear. So it's sort of in balance, which one will take effect more, vigorously in the perceptions of consumers. But at the end of the day, I would think that the fear of recession is probably a little higher than the trade tariffs, which can be negotiated to some extent.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and for joining us today, Professor Ghosh.
Thank you so much for having me.
Once again, that was SMU's Professor Aurobindo Ghosh, Principal Investigator of the DBS-SKBI SInDex Inflation Expectations Project. For more news, visit sbr.com.sg.